Welcome to CAN TV 21 Hotline. Let's talk etiquette. I am so pleased to be here with you again. And we have such an awesome subject, so awesome that we end up having to do it for 2 shows. That's how awesome this subject is. But before I get to that subject, I want to ask you now to give us a call at 738-1060. Let me repeat it again. 312-738-1060. Give us a call. Let us know what you think about this subject. For that, I'd like to turn this over to this lady, Madam Georgia Selmon, etiquette maven extraordinary. Georgia, welcome again, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you. It is my pleasure, Mr. Wright, and I'm so happy that you've invited me to come back. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited about the subject.
Yes.
And I can't wait for us to get started.
Wonderful. This is a contagious subject, I'm telling you. Once you start thinking about it and realizing how important it is and how relevant it is to everything we do, this is why this is such a grand subject. But we're going to go back to last week when we had this subject up. And we want to get started because I'm looking for your calls to come in. We only have this 29-minute time period. We want to make it as impactful as possible. So let me go to the overhead so you can see what last week's subject was. And would you mind, Madam, reading that off to our viewers?
Absolutely. The moral codes that governs our individual and collective behavior. Ethics. Teaching your child morals.
Yes.
Why is it important to teach your children the rules of civilized behavior? Civilized behavior.
Yes. It's not like it's something foreign to be civilized. I mean, that's supposed to be a very common thing, but you do need to know how it works, how this system works. It's a social system that has a set of rules that says that you're conducting yourself. Clear that throat, madam, clear that throat so you can talk. So that you can act and behave in a certain, very prescribed way. The civilization of our humanity is all a part of what it is to be civilized. And if you don't really understand it, you need to study it.
Yes.
If you think you understand it, you still need to study it to make sure you got it correct and that you do understand what it is to be civilized. Ethics plays such an impactful part of that. And so we're going to get back to where we were last week, and we were off onto a subject of the bullet points that we wanted to discuss with you. To just have some interaction with you so that when you call us, you'll have maybe a good subject, a good question to ask us. So I'm going to go back to the overhead, and we'll start with bullet 1. We're going to go back over that one. And it says, development of lifelong ethical and moral values. That's quite a mouthful there, I would think. Development of lifelong ethical. Yeah, lifelong meaning from this point forward, however long the remaining time that's left for you in life, this is what we're talking about. Those ethical values. Those things that you believe in, that you have adopted. And so, Madam Selmon, give us some examples of those things that we adopt as part of our ethical values.
Well, when you think about ethical, you're thinking about right and wrongs. You're thinking about the correct way, the way that you do things with integrity. So that's your ethical component.
Yes.
What is correct, what is right, and what is wrong.
Yes.
That's it. That's it in a nutshell.
Yes.
And when you talk about morals, you're talking about principles.
Yes.
What you believe in, what you stand for, what you, how you do things, and how you do them in a manner that's acceptable.
Yes.
So you're talking about 2 different principles, but they're basically a code of behavior, which is etiquette.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
You know, the codes of behavior.
Yes,
So
yes.
morals and ethics, it's all relative. And one, you know, you deal with what you believe in, you know, what your standards are, what your principles are. And pretty much that's my take on it.
That's your take. And
Yes.
really how it ties in absolutely to civilized or civilization. Civilizing or a standard of rules and moral conduct that you just mentioned is part of what it is to be civilized. Those rules and those conducts and values that you just said all come up under this thing called civilized behavior.
Yes.
And so they are a set of rules that are established that within those becomes ethics. Within those rules comes manners
Yes.
and etiquette.
Yes.
Yes. Could you expound on that a little more in terms of its relationship within this thing called being civilized?
Well, when you think in terms of morals, you think about what you believe in, how you go through life with a certain standards, a certain behavior, and that if your belief system happens to be that of integrity, then you're talking about civilized.
Yes.
And it all starts, and I've said it umpteen times since I've been on your show, and I will continue to say, it starts from home.
Yes, yes, from home. But
It starts from home.
Even at where it starts at, the parents have to be at least intellectually competent to understand how this fits into what it is to be civilized. How does all these rules of behavior and conduct fit into what it is to be civilized in this system, as opposed to, say, an Oriental system or another culture system? I'm certain that whatever their rules of what it is to be civilized, even though they may be different from
Well, let's
ours.
talk about civilized. What is civilized?
All
What
right.
does it? What in your opinion? What does civilized encompass?
Okay, civilized to me, great question. Civilized to me encompass all of the rules of behavior that constitute what is to think and act normal. See, normal is a standard of conduct that says you are civilized. And what is normally considered normal is to have good manners, good morals, good ethics, and to conduct yourself in such a way in society that you are not doing anything outside of what is considered normal. I'm not acting abnormal, I'm acting normal. And that may mean how I walk down the sidewalk, walk down the street. You know, am I acting normal? That may mean if I'm looking odd, am I acting normal? As an example, if I'm standing on the corner, am I acting what would be constituted as normal?
Why-
Or am I acting as though I'm acting abnormal?
Is it
So
civilized?
civilized is part of what society consider to be normal.
Is it civilized to spit on the sidewalk?
Absolutely not. It is not civilized.
I agree with you. It happens all the time.
It is a common behavior. Not that we are so educated, and we should be very educated in what it is to be civilized. And to spit on the sidewalk is certainly not a civilized act.
Absolutely.
Okay, it is more about being uncivilized. when you-
Barbarian, as you could say.
Oh, right. So within these values that we believe in, all come under what is considered the rules of being civilized. Is that a good answer?
Very good answer.
Okay,
Very good
wonderful,
answer.
wonderful. And that's what's really, the parents have to incorporate all of the things they're teaching their children under this larger umbrella called civilized or civilization. To civilize someone is the root of the word. To be civilized. What do you do to appear to be civilized, even though we constantly are acting very uncivilized, like spitting on the sidewalk?
I don't do it.
Right. Or a host of other things, committing assaults and crimes and all of those are all considered uncivilized kinds of behavior. And the society is full of uncivilized people. One moment they can be very civilized, and the next moment they can hit you in the head and rob you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And do something just the opposite of what it is. So I think we need to really go back and start teaching that fundamental system of what it is to be civilized. And within that is what? Etiquette.
Etiquette, absolutely.
Etiquette. So that's where
manners and morals,
yes,
standards,
yes,
principles.
Right. Right. And if you tell your child this is all about your behavior and you're acting in a civilized manner when you adhere to these rules. So let's go to the next one and see where we're at with that one.
Yes.
Okay, you want to take that one on?
Okay. Increase determination to obtain a quality education. Increase determination to obtain a quality education.
Yes. Yes. Now, that seems like it may not connect with this subject, but it does, because as you proceed in growth and age, the whole opportunity to acquire a great education seems to be right there before you.
Yes.
You have public schools, you have private schools, so there are a number of avenues that you can pursue in order to receive an education. But the thing with education, this is just my opinion, they do not start with the right subjects. They omit some of the most important subjects of all. So give me some examples of some of the subjects that should be taught.
Well, when we talk about to increase the determination, I think that encompass just not the educators, the schools, but that encompass every person that has input, has connection with a younger person. So that's your community leaders, that's your churches, your any entity in all resources that connects with children could make a difference and could increase the determination to influence a quality education.
That's an excellent answer.
Well,
But I'm not surprised coming from you. That's an excellent answer. And you're absolutely right. All of those influences
yes,
that our children are exposed to beyond the home are those institutions that have something positive, constructive to contribute to that child. And
yes,
that's why you named those specific institutions.
Absolutely.
Which is part of the whole of what civilization is all about.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly.
I totally agree with that. And
it's the subject matter that we go into the schools and present. Etiquette education, manners and morals.
Mm-hmm.
That's aside from the standard curriculum. It's
Right.
aside from the sciences and the math classes and the English classes. It's a separate component, but it should be inclusive in
Yes.
the development of our children.
Yes.
Because we're teaching some core information that's going to help solidify all of what they're learning in the traditional setting.
Right.
So I think we all have a part to play in the development of a great education for people, our young people particularly.
Yes. And one of the things, I totally agree with that. One of the things that, in fact, probably far of more value to our children is what we're discussing today, how to behave in a civilized manner. If that was the foundation of their education in terms of understanding what the process is about as a student, you have a title, you're a student, the teacher has a title, the teacher is a teacher, and so on. So you learn to respect individuals who are contributing to your well-being in relationship to your educational development.
Absolutely.
And so, but the child needs a foundation of understanding as what their role is and why they should behave in a certain manner. Why should they show respect to the teacher and to their fellow students? So this civilizing process should really start, like you said, at home.
Yes, absolutely.
At home.
Absolutely.
And the parents should also include that type of verbiage in their education of their child.
And support the teachers or support the counselors, whomever that is educating their kids. Be supportive to those entities and those individuals.
Absolutely.
Everyone should be on the same page.
Absolutely. And if they're not, then certainly it's up to the parent to go to the school and explain to the teacher, explain to the counselor the kind of education we as a family have provided for our child. We have taught our child the whole understanding of what it is to be civilized.
Sure.
We've taught our child what it is to be mannerable and polite and courteous. And so we have done our part so that you have a fine student to educate. Now, our child is going to be obedient and attentive. Son, you have to be attentive. You cannot allow yourself to be distracted because you will not learn at the level you have the potentials to learn if you're unattentive. See, so that's the kind of educational that we're talking about from the home.
Absolutely.
Give us some other examples.
Well, and any entity, even the church. I speak of church because I'm a church person. I go to church on a regular basis, and sometimes we see behavior even in that arena that's kind of unacceptable. I'm not going to go as far as saying that it's not civilized, but I would say it's inappropriate. Some of the behavior of our younger kids, and so every entity that's involved with young people should have some kind of component, that educational component, where they're trying to influence a quality education that encompasses manners and morals, and encompass etiquette education. It's just so significant and so important.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And when we speak of the word education, the first foundation of that education is understanding this subject.
yes.
Having an appreciation of what it is to be mannerable and respectful. Etiquette. If they have an appreciation of that, then they can relate that to all of the other subjects, math, science, English, whatever that subject may be. All of it rests on that individual's behavior and understanding of how to behave and conduct themselves in a way that's consistent with that institution, like the church
Yes.
that you mentioned there. And you know very well, I have volunteered to a number of churches in the community to go in there and teach their young people about church etiquette.
Yes.
Most people don't even think of that term. That's just like something very foreign to even those who go to church on a regular basis. But if you don't intercede and educate the children who come to that church about proper conduct, that's an education. You need to be educated on what is proper conduct within this institution called the church. And if the children aren't getting that kind of education, they're going to do whatever their emotions tell them to do, whatever their free thinking says they can do. And that way, it doesn't support the objective of that institution, which is the place of education. Isn't the church an educational center?
Absolutely.
That's the purpose of
And
it.
it's more than just a biblical learning, that's the primary
Education.
focus. Well, biblical is the primary of it in a church setting.
Right.
But some of these other things that we're speaking of, morals and ethical, if the core, the basics of what we are promoting, and that's etiquette education, the morals, and the ethical things that we're talking about falls right in place. because right in place.
Yes.
Because when you are teaching our people how to this code of behavior, right and wrong, good behavior, good manners, polite behavior, then you have these morals that society look for when you come into the world.
Yes.
You have this code of well-being.
Yes.
So.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And then within the church itself is normally not referred to as an educational institution. But for those who do go to church, it's very much an educational institution. It is actually set up and structured where you are actually sitting and you're receiving the lessons from the Bible. In most cases, that's what the pastor, who is the professor, who is the instructor, who is the educator, right? In your church. He's the educator. He's explaining to you biblical lessons so that you can understand it. He's translating that in a form where you should be able to understand it. So a church is no different from a school. You're both in the business of educating your pupils. And when you go to church, pretty much you are a pupil, as opposed to being the pastor. The pastor is the professor.
Pretty much.
Pretty much in the church. Now, of course, that's the purpose of going, so you can get that lesson that he's decided to teach this particular Sunday. But the other parts of what I've been asked to do in terms of church etiquette is to go and work with those young people so that they can get a good sense of why they're there. What is the purpose of being there? What is their mission for being there? Most of them are there because they've been told by their parents you're going to church. Right? No question about it. You don't have a choice, right? So, but if the parents just simply tell them they're going to church, but not give them the basic fundamentals of how they should conduct themselves within that church, to be respectful. You see our young people today, what are they doing in the church? They're doing this, and the pastor is trying to get a very important word across to you so you can understand something about the faith that you're there to adhere to. You're into something that's totally, the child's mind is totally disconnected from that. And I think that's one of the things that I hopefully have been helpful in getting those young people to understand that is disrespecting your pastor. And you don't want to be there to show disrespect to him. Give him that little time he's asking. Not a lot, just a little of his time. Pay attention. And at least act like you're paying attention.
But you know,
if you're not.
it's that should come from home. That should come from the parents.
It's not.
No, it isn't, obviously.
That's
but
why he's asking me to come.
It should come from home.
Yeah, I agree.
Just like so many other lessons should come from home. It should be, the home is the foundation. And if parents are not teaching their kids the ethical and the moral principles of life itself, then the difficulty of the institution is going to be that far greater, harder. It has to start at home. It has to start at home.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of times the ball is being, it's
dropped.
not, yes, because, parents are, true enough, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone, because we all have a responsibility to this mission.
Mm-hmm.
But if the parents are working and they're and most parents are working,
Yes.
and kids are having to kind of raise themselves.
Unfortunately.
Yes, but it is. I mean, that's the reality of it, and that's one of the reasons why we see sometimes uncivilized behavior, because young people are not getting the kind of training and the kind of support that's needed from home first. And then when they come into these other institutions, like at schools, or like at church, or like any other place they may go, rec centers, and they're missing those valuable manners and things that we know that they all need for the rest of the duration of their lives.
And you know, it's such an interesting topic when we speak about lessons or education coming from the home. We at the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois have a complete curriculum for parents. For parents, we have a complete curriculum, and we've been invited to a number of schools where they have parents that come to the school in the daytime, and we go there and teach them etiquette,
Yes.
how to raise their children to be moral individuals, to be ethical individuals, to have great manners, and it has to be reflected in the parents' behavior in order to teach you. You can talk it out your
Absolutely.
mouth, but you got to do it.
Absolutely.
You got to act it out so that
Yes.
the child can see you are consistent with what you're trying to get them to accept. And so, actually, now that you mention that, I may suggest this to one of the pastors that I'm associated with. Let's start some parent etiquette training programs there at the church.
Absolutely.
And maybe we'll have the children and the parents together.
Absolutely.
How does that sound?
Sounds like a
good
plan.
idea.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
I'm gonna try that out and see if a few of the pastors I know would be willing to do that. And it's simple. You're gonna they're gonna continue to behave the way they're behaving. The parent is not there to do the kind of job that we're talking about in terms of educating their children, but coming together, then you can certainly achieve that. You know.
Yes.
And do we have a caller? No? Okay. Well, let's move to the next bullet point.
I think we're almost close to the
We're
end.
closing it out?
Yes, we're good.
Yeah, let's go to the next one then until we get the 1 minute
We
warning.
get that.
That was the 1 minute
Yes,
warning?
we did.
Oh, okay. All right, I go back to this. But it was such a hot topic. I wanted to go and try to cover a few more things before we closed out today. But unfortunately, we need an hour. So maybe I'm going to ask CAN TV to extend our time to, nah, if they do that, they got to do it for everybody, right? Can't show no discrimination. But it would be great if it was a little longer timeline. And I've said this before, but I'm happy just to be here. And thank you, CAN. I'm not complaining like that. I'm happy with my 28 minutes, okay? So to close out, I'm going to put this up here so you can contact us. You can contact us at 312-473-2942. We prefer if you would send us, because we're in the schools in the daytime, so sometimes we're not able to have someone answer the phone, but send us an email at info@efoi.org. I'll say it again, info@efoi.org. Please go ahead and send us your commentary, your questions. Invite us out to your schools, wherever your children are attending, your church. We're open for that as well. That's voluntary. We'll do that kind of work for no charge whatsoever. But we like to be able to spread this word all over the world, especially in the United States of America, so that we can have some changes made in our public schools and our public education. But with that said, I'd like for you to close out the show, madam, if you don't mind.
Well,
Yes.
it's been a great topic,
Yes.
and I'm so excited to be a part of the discussion.
Yes.
And I would like to encourage everyone, please tune in. Let's talk etiquette. It's a subject that I think we all can make a contribution to.
Yes.
So, thanks for watching. Continue to watch. Please call in, and until next time, good evening.
Good evening.